What we do here is go back.
How's it going, everyone, and welcome to episode 67 of the Lost Media podcast. Today, yes, we are talking about the Sesame Street infamous Wicked Witch episode that aired in 1976 twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. It aired presumably more than once in a short space of time and then never again. And this is a long story. I want to start off with the very beginning, though, and we're going to get right into it straight away. Why not? In 1976, this episode was aired. I don't know the exact date off the top of my head because there's no notes in front of me for this podcast. I'm going all off memory. Wish me luck. A lot of people, a lot of kids, a lot of parents sent in letters to the people who made Sesame Street. The Children's Workshop, I believe it's called. The Children's Television Workshop. You can correct me on that name. And they were all angry letters saying that the witch was scaring the crap out of my children, and kids were sending in letters saying the witch lives in my dreams and she haunts me and she's cursed me. And this is just messed up. Kids are saying this in letters. There's physical evidence. It is playing behind me. If you want to see those letters, check out Blame It on George's video on the topic that will be playing behind me, interlaced with clips of the actual Wicked Witch episode. I can't play much of it though. And the Children's Television Workshop, they're just like, oh fuck, what have we done? This episode was designed to kind of show kids that there's nothing to be afraid of, you know. Sometimes shit happens. Sometimes people cause chaos in your life and you got to deal with it. But it terrified the crap out of kids. Basically, the gist is you got Margaret Hamilton. She played the Wicked Witch in 1939's The Wizard of Oz. Very iconic movie, very famous role. And the people from Sesame Street just said, hey, do you want to reprise your role and come to Sesame Street? We'd love to have you on the show to kind of teach kids as a lesson, you know, that stuff happens and you got to deal with it, and there's really, you know, nothing they can do, and it's just to, you know, just to further educate kids. And she loved, you know, education. Being a former preschool teacher, she thought it was awesome to educate children on, you know, things that were bad in the world and things that were out of their control. And she thought, oh, this is a good premise, I really want to do this. So she comes to Sesame Street in the episode and she loses her broom. She wants her broom back and she's going, give me my broom back, to Big Bird. And Big Bird's like, I don't know, I think you're very naughty. I don't think this is a good idea. And she's all sulky about not getting her broom back, and she's complaining, and she's like, I want my broom. And Oscar the Grouch goes, oh, I think I'm in love. This is so stupid. And Big Bird eventually grows to like her. She gets her broom back and she flies away. I don't think she ever becomes good or she turns a corner in this episode. I think she's just her character the whole time. By the way, I made another annoying noise in the mic. Sorry about that, guys. And yeah, that's her appearance on Sesame Street. It's kind of just like sometimes chaos can happen and this is just the world we live in type of thing. But the message didn't really work. And the episode ended up coming off as a bit, I guess you could say, pointless because of what happened. And Sesame Street's creators were so embarrassed with this. They had no intention of the Wicked Witch scaring any kid. You would never pick that this would scare kids. In fact, after the whole event, they did test screenings to a bunch of kids, and they really wanted to get to the bottom of this. They wanted to see if kids were genuinely scared by this. A bit messed up. Geez, Sesame Street, what the hell? And half the kids came out of the test screening a little bit scared and a little bit confused, and half the kids kind of came out of it just like, you know, which suggests that maybe this was something that kids wouldn't really think much about when they're watching it and then have nightmares about it that night or for the next several nights. And then the letters started flooding in from what happened in the days following this episode. So yeah, it's a confusing one. It's just crazy that when they were airing this is another detail I really wanted to talk about. When they're airing this to the kids in the test screening, they're chattering amongst one another. when the episode's going along as usual with all the usual Sesame Street's characters. They're talking and they all go deadpan silent and stare at the screen every single time the Wicked Witch is on the screen. And when she's not on the screen, they're chatting. And when she comes back, they're... when they're airing this to all the kids. So they kind of gathered not much information. It was kind of inconclusive, but the letters kept coming. They didn't stop coming. They got inundated with them, and they were just so embarrassed by the whole ordeal that they hid the episode and never aired it again after 1976. It was estimated to air 3 to 6 times. I think there's 3 confirmed airings of it. Well, not really confirmed, but it's suggested that they're legitimate airings of this episode from Sesame Street. I got distracted there. A kookaburra just landed right outside this room. I live in Australia. That is really, really cool. On a post there. Unrelated to the Wicked Witch of Sesame Street, though. So, years go by. People vaguely remember this episode, but can't find it. And then the internet comes along and, you know, of course, you can't hide Sesame Street. There's nowhere to hide. And it's just like, it's the countdown begins between this, before this episode. I should start that again. The countdown begins to this episode being eventually available to the public. It just started as soon as the internet started because it's too infamous an episode. Sesame Street is too famous a show, and to do the list thing again. And Margaret Hamilton as the Wicked Witch is too famous a character, and people would remember this episode. Now, 1976, no one had VCRs. They couldn't record anything. Maybe a small percentage of the world had VCRs. Very rich people. And nobody had a VHS recording of this just lying around in their house that they were just going to upload to the internet. And if they did, we would have got this a lot sooner. So people were posting online. One person in particular made the initial post saying, I remember this episode from my childhood, The Wicked Witch on Sesame Street, and I really would love to find it. I can't find it anywhere. And that's where the search begins. Didn't really pick up until 2015 or 2016, I think it was, despite Blame It on George mentioning himself a year or two earlier in his top 40 Lost Band Kid Show episodes as the number 1 addition in that video, alongside Snuffy's Parents Get a Divorce, which I've talked about here in the Lost Media podcast. You guys can check that out. That's in the description. And it takes another 2 years for everyone to really want to get around this and want to find it. And then all of a sudden, Sesame Street, 3 years after everyone's, searched for it for a while. It's very, very tough to find, as I mentioned, because no one just has a copy. It's only Sesame Street. Before the big event happens, I should say, people try contacting the Children's Television Workshop. The person who did the original post, who's looking for it the most, tries contacting the guy who played Big Bird, sends 2 letters out to him. Doesn't get a response and claims that one of his letters got stolen. I don't know if he's trying to insinuate that, someone's trying to hide this or someone's trying to get rid of his episode, to get rid of his letter rather, and not so it doesn't go through to Big Bird and not allow it to be seen. But yeah, that's interesting. He kind of just gave up on that lead. And of course, Margaret Hamilton passed away in the 80s. So, there was no, I'm completely muttering. There's no real way of contacting her, or her family, obviously. They never were able to contact her family over this. Didn't hear about anything in this search of people trying to contact her relatives about this episode, if they had a copy or something. That's pretty much all the searching that went down until in 2019, the people from Sesame Street announced a very special airing in Times Square in a cinema, or it might have actually been at Times Square itself, of all the lost and banned episodes of Sesame Street and any hard to find clips from the show from the years that they did it, in a special presentation. And in this, there's some brief clips of Snuffy's Parents Get a Divorce, and there's some brief clips of all kinds of lost Sesame Street media. And then at the end of the presentation, the person running it comes out and says, hey guys, here it is, episode 647, I believe it is. You can correct me. It is the Wicked Witch. The Wicked Witch. The Wicked Witch goes to Sesame Street. Blame It on George, the popular Lost Media YouTuber, was there himself in person to view this. He couldn't miss it, of course, because he had been following this topic for many years, and this was one of his most, I guess, wanted and elusive pieces of Lost Media that he really wanted to see. So he's there, he's eagerly watching, and the episode begins. The whole episode isn't played. It's just portions of it that are shown. And they're threatened, I guess, or not threatened, but they're told, everyone who's there, do not film this, do not attempt to film this, we'll take the footage from you if we see you filming this, don't do it. But within a few weeks of this event, leaks start coming out online of people filming this with a smartphone, and you get to see clips of the Wicked Witch on Sesame Street online. And there's a big debate in the Archiveorg comments. Oh no, they don't, this is so disrespectful to release this. They trusted everyone. We trusted you, Snape. I trusted you. They basically trusted everyone, and that's why they aired this to people, because they wanted people to see it, and they were hoping that you wouldn't film this, and you're just a dickhead for filming this and uploading it. Some people are saying that in the comments on Archive.org. Some people are saying, no, this should be uploaded. You can't hide the truth. It's just this weird shit show in the Archive.org comments. Disappointing. Very disappointing. But like I said, guys, something as popular as The Wicked Witch, from one of the most famous movies of all time, doing a crossover with one of the most famous TV shows of all time, Sesame Street. As soon as the internet is up and running, it's just a clock that's ticking down until this episode gets leaked. And in 2021, the people from Sesame Street announced we've had a data breach in our servers. Someone has come on and has hacked into it and has taken very rare and unreleased and stuff we don't intend to release from Sesame Street. Now, I should mention that 3 years before Blame It on George, at this event where the clips of the Wicked Witch episode was shown, he talked to one of the people in charge of Sesame Street, one of the, I guess, board members or one of the top people at Sesame Street. Anyway, and that he asked them, do you guys have any plans of releasing the full episode? And he said no. And the reason why is because he said it was just such an embarrassing thing for them, and it is one of the low points of their history. And it's too, I guess you could say, he said it was just too disappointing for them of an event, and they just can't bring themselves to release something like that, which is fair enough. I understand. And he understood as well. He didn't want to press the issue. He was like, oh yeah, that's fair enough, man. But of course, someone's gone onto the website 2 years later, and the domain where these episodes are kept. By the way, bad idea keeping them online in a server or in a website somewhere is privated. Of course, someone's gonna hack in and see if they're there. So they announced the breach in 2021. They say someone's gone on there, and we've got records to suggest someone's been there, and nothing comes out yet of the Sesame Street Wicked Witch episode, or Snuffy's parents get a divorce, the also lost episode of Sesame Street. But in 2022, a person just gives up. They're like, nah. They message Blame It on George, talks to this person fleetingly, doesn't reveal their identity, but the person basically says, I just got sick of it being lost and being never shown. I got sick of the fandom behind it. I wanted to end this once and for all. So the hype died down. And he leaked episode 847 of Sesame Street. 647, 847, I'm pretty sure it's 847. The Wicked Witch Goes to Sesame Street was released online. Now, I might be getting my facts wrong. This statement from the Children's Television Workshop might have been released after this was leaked. It might not have been released before this was leaked. Either way, I'm really fumbling around, guys. Apologies for the moments in this where I just got, fumbling around in my words. There's a lot of stuff to remember, so I'm trying to remember every single detail and not mess up. And it's not easy in a continuous podcast tough for listeners, so you gotta bear with me on this one. But the general gist is they basically said we're trying to delete any archive.org or any internet uploads or re-uploads of this as much as we can, because this was not meant to be released. So there it is. Someone's hacked into it. That's it. That's the Wicked Witch episode of Sesame Street. Too many people have seen it come up online. Too many people have discovered it, and it's too late. And re-uploads just kept appearing, and it's still accessible pretty easily online to this day now. Kind of disappointing because Sesame Street didn't want it to be released, but also you got to understand that it wasn't a great idea on their behalf to put it in a server or an account somewhere online as a private video, or in their archives and their hidden archives that are privated. A very dumb idea, in my opinion. You keep it as a physical copy somewhere in an actual place that's very difficult to locate. Or even just on a USB drive. Never upload it to anything online, because then this happens. But interestingly enough, Snuffy's parents get a divorce. The other Lost Sesame Street episode has still to this day not been leaked. I don't know if the same person who leaked this had the chance to leak that as well. But that has never been a more popular and more widespread topic than this one. I think that's why you just thought, oh, who cares about that one? Let's just release this one. This was nearly the holy grail of Lost media. I'd put this in the top 5 holy grails of Lost media. At the time, people wanted it. Now it's just a history lesson of stuff that people wanted that was finally released one day. It's a shame in some ways that they didn't want it released, but in other ways, it's, yeah, like I said, you don't upload it somewhere as a private video. Anyway, I'm starting to repeat myself, but that's basically it. Negligence on their part. Shame it was released without them wanting to release it on their terms, but it was never going to be released unless this happens. So it's nice to see it. The people that really wanted to see it, which is a lot of people, get to see it, which I think is good. And at the end of the day, who really cares? There's nothing they can do about it anymore. It's out there. But it's an interesting story. I first heard about this in 2015. I don't want to be that guy that's like, oh my God, guys, I first heard about this before everyone started really wanting to find it. But Blame It on George's video was released in like late 2014, early 2015. So, of course, I heard about it. Come on, guys. I've been following his channel for several years now, since his first few videos. This has now become incredibly cringe-worthy. Thank you guys so much for watching episode 67 of the Lost Media podcast. There is so many more coming out. I hope you guys enjoyed this little story of the Wicked Witch Sesame Street episode. Like I'm saying, in the next 9 or 8 episodes of the Lost Media podcast, this channel is going to have 3 videos released in the next few weeks that are nothing to do with Lost Media, and they are all one-off presentations. Extremely rare on the channel. Probably the only 3 videos in this channel's history that will have nothing to do with Lost Media. I'm uploading them because they're comedy videos, because they're a lot of fun, and they're a spoof of videos I loved watching back in the day in the golden age of YouTube. Read into that what you may. Yeah, they're going to be uploaded in a few weeks. So I want to give warning at the end of every single episode that, hey, these are coming. And I'm going to do a little announcement at the beginning of all of them to say, hey, this isn't a Lost Media video. But the warnings before them is so when they appear and people are like, what's this? They know that I've told you guys. Everyone who's watching this knows. But it's at the end of every episode, so there's still going to be people who see it pop up on the channel. They're like, what the hell is this? But I can't prevent that. I'm just trying to give as much warning as I can to anyone viewing the next 8 to 9 podcasts to say, this is coming up. Don't get worried that this is going to become the content. It's 3 one-off presentations that will be done once or 3 times and never again on this channel. So there you go. Again, thanks guys for watching. And those are going to be filmed in 2 weeks' time, which I cannot wait to do. But episodes are just going to keep being uploaded to this channel. Don't worry about episodes stopping because I'm going away. There's heaps still being uploaded while I'm away that are just going to be sitting on the account. So yes, that's it. I'll just say one last thing. Apologies for mumbling and stumbling around during this podcast. Like I said earlier, very difficult to talk in a very eloquent way and a continuous way in every single episode of the Lost Media podcast. There's going to be episodes where I fumble and mumble on my words and, you know, completely screw up some things. I had to completely start my sentence again, which is incredibly rare in a released Lost Media podcast. I hold myself to pretty high standards on this thing with trying to not to repeat myself and do what I did just then. So yeah, again, apologies if that you found that kind of annoying to listen to. Just a lot of things to remember for this. There were too many details, and I still missed out a lot of details for this. I just wanted to get to the main crux of it. But thank you guys. That's it. That's a Lost Media podcast. This has to end. It has to end.